Hello, welcome to another video, Communication Tips and Strategies with Tia Ramey. I'm Tia Ramey. I'm a crisis communications professional that specializes in difficult conversations and using social media strategy to facilitate and engage people in difficult discussions. And I've written a book called Cancel Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World. You can get that on my website, rameymarketing.com/books. And I love to give communication tips and strategies and techniques to help you master difficult conversations because we're having them constantly all the time, especially on social media. I mean, it's become a really big thing, where we're talking about lots of topics from racial justice, we're talking about sexuality, we're talking about religion. A lot of things that used to be taboo in common settings are now coming out, and we're being forced to have these discussions. So I try my best to give you tips and tools and techniques and strategies to help you engage in these discussions and expand the mind of the person that you hope to be in connection with. So today I wanted to talk to you about what is happening in a person's mind when you're trying to tell them the truth. Have you ever had the experience where you're trying to be honest with someone, you're trying to tell them the truth, and they just cannot handle it, they cannot hear it, they have no capacity for that honest dialogue? It's a very frustrating thing. If you're like me, sometimes you really value truth. If you're a very logical person, truth is a valuable thing. It's something that you use to live and thrive on. And so when someone asks you a question and you give them an honest answer and they just didn't care for your answer, it can throw you off quite a bit. And so there's so many difficult conversations that need to be had. I mean, for example, maybe you saw one of your friend's spouses out with someone else and you want to tell them, and you ask yourself, how do I have this difficult conversation with my friend? Should I have it? Am I the right person to bring it to them? So many questions come into your mind, and you know that they're going to be upset when you tell them, but you know that you don't want them to be upset with you. And the question is, why does this happen? Why do people get mad when you're telling them the truth? What's really happening in their psyche that you're trying to liberate them? You're trying to help them establish some freedom here, and you're trying to give them options to help them better themselves. And instead of them seeing the favor that you're doing by having some honest dialogue, they're angry, they're upset, they're enraged, they're offended. And you didn't criticize them, you didn't put them down, you just told them the truth. Well, I want to just kind of establish what the problem is. And here's what I'll say. In our modern society and in our forms of communication, we have become very formal. And we formally communicate without really quite thinking about what we're saying. We're just used to reacting and saying the things that sound good. Unfortunately, the people who are closest to us are not really supposed to be the people who just say things that sound good. The people who are closest to us are really supposed to say things that are true. That's what's supposed to happen, and we're supposed to give them rights and room and freedom to tell us the truth. But our common formalities have really conflicted with how we're supposed to communicate. So now, especially thanks to social media, especially because we can always put our best foot forward and we can look like we have this adventurous, fun life where we're going out to eat all the time and we're always traveling and we're shopping and we're buying the latest and greatest. We're constantly distorting reality all the time. And this is happening in our pockets right here. This device is controlling our lives and is telling us who we should be, what we should look like, what we should do. And we have to honestly take inventory for how this is really impacting the way we communicate with one another also. We're living alternate egos, alternate realities all the time, and we've gotten much worse about that. Not really having realistic expectations for life. So having honest dialogue, having the capacity to have honest dialogue is really becoming a lost art. And you're going to have to challenge yourself to mature and grow and value when someone is intending to tell you the truth. Even if it's something you don't want to hear, even if it's something that you don't like, even if it's something that hurts your feelings, we are not being challenged to expand our capacity for honest dialogue. I'll give you one brief example. How many times have someone walked past you or you walked past someone else and you looked at each other and said, "Hey, how's it going?" Well, did you really want to know how it was going? Do you really want to know how they're doing? Or are you just kind of reacting to life, right? Because this is what sounds good to say. Not because it was true, not because you really cared about that person and you wanted to stop what you were doing in that moment and hear their heart. We do it as a formality. And now we're constantly speaking as a formality without giving any real thought to our words. And now we have this social space where we're always in constant communication traffic, and we're saying things that sound good, we're saying things that make us look good, and we do not want anyone to burst that bubble, right? So we're going to have to challenge each other once again and understand that we survive on truth. That is what helps us to survive, to stay alive. So we have to be honest with one another, and we have to expand our capacity to take in truthful things. And the truth usually is not very comfortable, and it's usually how you know that you're growing in any other case, right? You know you're growing when you're uncomfortable. If you were constantly working out, you know that when you're starting to huff and puff and sweat and your muscles are flexing, you're in an uncomfortable state, but you're getting stronger, you're getting in shape. We have to do the same thing to ourselves. So let me just explain. I haven't really quite got into why people get so mad. I'm explaining the problem, but I want to just explain to you what is happening in the mind of a person when they're hearing difficult information for the very first time. And I want you to understand this, because if you understand this, then you may be more responsible with how you deliver that truth to another person. And this is important to know. Mind you, everything around us, everything exists on words and communication, and our ability to bring words that are happening in our mind into fruition, and to have this sort of language, and then it transpires. It's a microphone, it's a desk, it's a stand. All of these things existed as language in our brain first before it came into the world. This is the same thing when it comes to information. You're telling someone for the first time, you're changing them with your words. You're changing their reality. And if you're hearing difficult information for the very first time that you've never heard, someone's telling you something very difficult, you have a choice. The choice is, do I protect my reality as I know it, or do I change and expand as a person? And then you have to ask yourself, what is this information going to do to me if I let it in? And that can be a very scary thing, especially when someone is telling you the truth and it's difficult to hear and it's something you've never heard for the very first time. You don't know what it's going to do for you yet. Now, usually when people are willing to take in the truth, they can hear honest dialogue, is because they have their mind and their body and their spirit, their heart in a place where they are prepared to grow, to expand, to change. And some people try their best to live in that sort of a state, that they're ready to learn from the world around them and the people around them. So they're okay with that. But there are some people who, I like my world right where it is. If you tell me something about my kids that I don't know, if you tell me something about my wife that I don't know, if you tell me something about myself that I don't know, you are changing my world. And I don't know if I want you to do that yet. Which is why we have to really know how to deliver the truth with grace. Because what happens is, when someone is in that place and they're having to make micro decisions in a second with what you're going to tell them, right? Mind you, you're telling them bad news, or you're telling them difficult information, or you're telling them truth that's hard for them to take in, and they're upset about it because they're not ready to change yet. Some call that cognitive dissonance, but you have to give them a chance to assess whether or not what you're even saying is true, right? Because just because you're saying it doesn't necessarily mean it's true to them. So now we're on this journey together, that you're giving me difficult information, you're changing me with your words, and I need to see whether or not I'm ready to let you do that. You really need to give that person time and an opportunity to process what you're saying. So check on them. Check on them. If they're a logical person, they're probably going to ask you a series of questions. That's usually that logic-minded person. They need to put facts together. That's what they need to do. So think about it. If the truth that you're trying to tell them is about your feelings, and it's in regards to emotion, because sometimes we're trying to truthfully express our feelings, but truthfully expressing your feelings is not the same as truthfully expressing your facts. So a logical person hearing difficult information for the first time about feelings is going to need to understand how the facts connect to those emotions. And you have to give them room to go on that journey and figure that out so you can put those pieces together. So that's one thing to think about, right? That also be mindful of the fact that if you're telling someone the truth, you're also speaking from your perspective. So if you want the path to least resistance, let them know and use those words. From my perspective, I'd like to tell you what I observe. This way that they are understanding that you're speaking for yourself and you're presenting information in a way that's less threatening. In this way, it gives them just a piece so that way they can transition into whether or not they want to be changed by the information that you're giving them. I hope that makes sense and it's not too deep. But I want you to understand that being able to express, hey, in my opinion, from my perspective, there's something I've observed and I'd like to share it with you. Help me to make sense of this. So this isn't you just forcing information on an individual. This is you saying, I have a perspective in the world and you do too. Let's go on a truth journey together and put our pieces together. Rather than you saying, I'm imposing my truth on you and I want you to instantly change in this moment. This is an upsetting thing if you're having a difficult conversation, right? Sometimes, unfortunately, you might be telling someone the truth about how you feel about them, and sometimes it's a good thing. But because this person may have low self-esteem, they can't even accept the good things that you say. It's still the same thing. You're trying to change me with your words, and I'm not ready to change yet. Sometimes what you need to do is start to prepare the listener by asking questions first and helping them down this journey. How does that look? There's something I'd love to share with you. I really value your opinion and your input. I know that, by myself, I may not have all the answers, but I'd like to talk to you about something and I want your feedback. So there are like little covert ways that you can start to insert information, tell someone the truth in a way that's responsible. Because when someone is hearing something difficult for the first time and they're getting mad that you're telling them the truth, their survival instincts are kicking in. You're trying to change me, and I don't know if I'm ready to change yet. And now I'm trying to survive this information. And now we're against each other versus coming together. And truth is supposed to bring people together. So I would say that person where you are, you've been that friend, you're an honest person, you love honest dialogue, and you're always thrown off by people who they ask you a question and they weren't ready for your honest answer. That's a tough place to be in, and I've been in that position many, many times. And sometimes I like to ask people, first, why don't you tell me what is kind of the purpose of this conversation? Because it really helps. Like if someone says, I'm really feeling down about myself right now and I really need to feel better, then you won't just give them your honest feedback. And I think that there's some communication tactics on the other side, that if you are a person who gets mad when people tell you the truth from their perspective, there's some maturity that needs to come into play. Please tell people what you need before you start speaking. That's very important to do, right? So you're feeling insecure and you ask your husband or your wife, how do I look in this? Don't ask an open-ended question. Don't even do it, because you're not in a place where you're ready to hear the truth. If your intent is that you feel bad about yourself, and if their honest answer is, hey, you don't look so good right now. If you're going to be hurt, just tell them what you need. I need some encouragement. Please, just tell me I'm beautiful. And then you'll get what you want out of people. So a lot of times people get mad when you tell them the truth because they really have not thought about what they want out of the discussion first. And sometimes you may want to ask yourself that before you even respond, because one side, if you're the communicator and you want to sit down and tell someone the truth, then you can plan these things out prior to. But if you're the listener and a friend asks you a question, or someone that you love asks you a question and you answer it honestly and they get mad, again, they have this world in their mind already. When they ask you the question, they really wanted you to validate that world. They weren't really looking for the honesty. They're not ready to be changed yet. If you're that person, if you're like me, and you love honest dialogue, it's very good to ask yourself first, or ask them first, what is it, where is this going to go? What is it that you need from me? And there's nice ways to say that. Hey, I'd love to give you what you need. What is it that you need from me out of this discussion? So you may have to, and that might throw them off a little bit. But it's better to find out what people really want from you when they start asking you for your honesty than it is for you to answer and then you're way off because they didn't establish what they wanted first. Sometimes, like I said, they just want to feel good about themselves. Sometimes people just want to vent and they really didn't want your honest feedback at all. They just wanted to vent, and they should have told you that. So that's what I say. I would ask them before you respond, say, hey, are you looking for feedback? They might not be. They're like, I really just wanted to express myself. And sometimes you have to ask. And it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask. But think about that. I want you to just, be responsible with your process for delivering truth, because again, this is the power to change another person with your words. This is a powerful thing that really should not be taken lightly. It shouldn't be taken for granted. It's very powerful that when you speak, things change instantly. And sometimes, even though you didn't change the other person, maybe you've changed your relationship. Something's going to change. And if you want to have more control over what that change is, then I want you to really think about what you want to say and plan it before you say it. Assess the mental and emotional capacity of the person you plan to speak to. Ask them for what it is they need out of this discussion, or ask yourself, what is it that I would need out of this discussion? Why am I even speaking? What is the point? And if you can establish some of these things from the beginning, then you may not have this place where you're so angry at the end. Sometimes you can get to this place where someone is angry with the information, but they're not necessarily angry with you because you did such a great job of delivering it. And the best way to do that is to not say things in a way that's going to trigger someone's survival instincts, because when someone goes into that mode and they feel like they're surviving you, no matter how much they love you, you're the enemy. Even marriages have this issue all the time. So I hope these communication tips were helpful. These strategies were helpful to you in your time with having difficult conversations. Again, you can get my book, Cancel Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World. I discuss plenty of communication strategies like this, and I take you over the course of history over why our communication has become so broken and so fragmented, what we can do about it, and how we communicate now. And with this digital technology, whether you're writing a speech, whether you're on social media, whether you're talking to someone one-on-one, if it's personal or in the workplace, I'm here to help you avoid crisis and prevent it in your personal and professional relationships with communication tips. So I hope all is well and you've enjoyed this video. Please share it with someone